We good? Payson, are you guys good?
We're all set.
Okay. Well, good morning to you in Payson. Good morning to everybody on YouTube. And it's 10 o'clock, and I'll call this meeting to order. And so, if you will all rise, and we'll say the pledge, and then the invocation will be presented by Pastor Ryan Breeden, Church of Christ. So you can follow me in pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would you pray with me, please? Dear God, we are grateful to be able to come into your presence this morning, to know that we can do that in a nation where we do not fear our religion, our faith, our beliefs, where we know that we are free from persecution because of our Constitution, because of our laws, and because of the protections that are afforded to us by our governments and by our public officials. And God, at this time, we're mindful of a very different situation from that we find over in Afghanistan right now, with people in fear, with our own troops and people in harm's way right now. And God, we just pray that you would bring a resolution to that situation that would be good for this nation, but also in the best interest of the people that live there in Afghanistan. And at the same time, we're also mindful of the situation in Haiti, where in the lack of an infrastructure, when something terrible like this earthquake happens, so many lives are lost, so many bad things happen. And again, we're grateful to live in a nation that is more able to take care of itself, more prepared for those kinds of situations, and where we find governments and officials and agencies that can help with those kinds of things. And it's for those reasons, God, that we pray at this time that you would be with this Board of Supervisors, and that you would put your hand over this meeting, that you would help them to make wise decisions that would guide this county, that would be responsive to the needs of the citizens here and the voters and the people that are counting on the leadership of these men and women and for the things that they're going to do. Bless them in their efforts, bless this meeting, and help it to be something that would help to resolve issues that need to be resolved, that would meet the needs of people that are here and be responsive to those who've come to speak. Bless us as a community, as a state. Help us to be strengthened in this difficult time with the COVID virus, with just the many challenges that face our country right now. Bless our leadership and bless our citizens, that we would be responsible and that we would carry out your will and not simply what we think is best for ourselves. We pray these things in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, sir. Okay. With that, we will move on to number two, presentations. So the first presentation, 2A, is actually mine and Frank Domlin's today, but it's a presentation of a check in the amount of $30,000 to the Gila County Cattle Growers Association. First off, I want to thank you other two supervisors for pitching in on this. This is a good deal. Gila County Cattle Growers has been with us since, 43? Frank? 34. A long time. A long organization here in Gila County. Has been a big help to everybody in Gila County from then till today. So it's a pleasure for me today to present you that check, Frank, and on behalf of the other two and myself. So you got something you want to?
I'd like to thank all the supervisors for this generous donation, and it will certainly help the ranchers that lost all their infrastructure and some that had to sell all their cattle, and everybody had to reduce numbers. So to get through this time and help them get back into production, and so it is much needed and much appreciated, as the county has always supported our organization. We thank you for that.
Thank you, Frank. Tim, do you have something you would like to say? Did we lose you, Tim? I think we lost you, Tim. Steve, how about you? Yeah, you're breaking in and out, Tim. How about you,
sorry.
Supervisor
I'm
Christensen?
sorry. I didn't hear you. Yeah, I just want to say that I'm happy to contribute as well in support of the cattle growers.
Thank you, Steve. Tim, are you back with us?
Yeah, I'm with you, and you know, I'm glad that we all see through the same eyes and are able to help. I just wish we could help more, but I do appreciate all that they do and work with us on different things. So I'm glad to be able to do that.
Thank you, Tim. So this time, Frank, we'll get a picture with me and you, I guess, with this check. Come on, Paul.
I'm getting closer. Okay.
Got it? Good, Kathy? I'm good, gotcha. Thank you so much. Thank you, Frank. Appreciate it. All right, so moving on to 2B is an update on the activities of the County Supervisors Association, CSA by Craig Sullivan, CSA Executive Director, including a discussion of recent legislative activities. Thank you, Craig. It's good to see you this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. It's a pleasure to be here with you. I really appreciate you giving me this opportunity to visit with you. Supervisor Christensen, Supervisor Humphrey, good to see you guys on the screen. I look forward to seeing you again in person, but thank you as well for giving me this opportunity to speak to you. What I'd like to do today is present a report of this last legislative session and some of the work that we've been doing, as you mentioned, Mr. Chairman. There's a lot of content in it. It's not my intent to go into all of the elements of it, but to just hit some of the highlights. But of course, if there are any questions, feel free to stop me. I'm happy to explore anything that you may want to explore. And just to begin with, I want to thank the members of this board for your involvement in the association. Your partnership with the other counties makes for a strong collaboration across the state, and we very much appreciate your seat at our table. So thank you for that, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Craig.
And I want to extend my appreciation to County Manager Mr. Menlove as well. This county, its manager and professional staff are excellent at responding to our requests for information to make sure that Gila County's perspective is always at the table. So thank you, Mr. Menlove. I know often our emails come in with urgent noted on them, and so we are grateful that you all respond. And before I begin as well, I just wanted to take a brief moment of personal privilege. This is the first time I've spoken before this board since we lost Tommy Martin. And I just wanted to stand here to extend the condolences of mine as well as our whole association. As you know, she was adored by our organization and a great leader in our organization. And so I just want to pass on my sympathies to her family. Jackie, if you would, please tell Ronnie that my golf game has not improved one whit since the last time he and I visited. That will not surprise him, by the way.
His not either. You're good to go.
So to begin with on the presentation, first thing I'd like to do is talk a little bit about who we are. So the County Supervisors Association is a collaboration of the 15 counties. We are essentially a research and advocacy entity. We use our board as a forum to share information across all 15 counties, and you all have a seat at that table. In essence, we are an intergovernmental office working to engage other entities that impact your operations. And so we're a centralized office of the 15 counties that serves as a liaison to the legislature, executive agencies, Congress, the court system, and others. And so it's an efficient way for all 15 counties to come together to engage these various partners. I mentioned that our leadership is every county and every supervisor in the state. So everybody has a vote at our table. We do have an executive committee that reflects small, medium, and large county caucuses, and we have a legislative policy committee, and I want to thank Mr. Klein for your involvement in our policy committee over the last year. So we're very participatory oriented. I also wanted to share that we use our forum to share information. This is just some of the speakers that we had come through the last year and to engage with you and your colleagues. And we are beginning our programming now for the fall and for the winter and spring. And we also partner regularly with what we call affiliate groups, which are professional staff groups among the counties and the managers, planning directors, finance directors, and others, and they provide critical support to everything that we do. I've got 3 strategic initiatives that I'd just like to talk briefly about. What are strategic initiatives? They're things that the organization's really focusing on to make sure that we can add value to our client counties. The first item is about our data collection. So this is something that's run by Vanessa Fielder on our team, and this is where we have been building out data from all 15 counties that is available to you in what we call our county encyclopedia, our county revenue dashboard, and our county employment dashboard. Those are online tools that you can access. We can also provide the full menu of data points that we store to your professional staff in the form of spreadsheets, and they're able to utilize that as well. Why do we have such a focus on data collection? You know, it's the foundation of everything we do. Good decisions require good information, and so we continue to focus on building that capability. Public safety pensions has been another key strategic initiative for several years. Initially, we were focused on influencing program design, so we participated in a coalition to change the statutory framework for the public safety pension system. Mr. Menlove served on the task force that yielded the policy changes that we in the league sought to put in place. Those have been in place for some time. Now what we're focused on is working with all 15 counties to build capacity and awareness about the magnitude of this problem, identify strategies to pursue cost containment of it, and then to be better partners in terms of influencing the decisions made at the pension system itself. This county's been an early mover in identifying lower cost strategies to contain it. Other counties are looking at that as well. But I want to just extend kudos to all of you for moving quickly with the pension bonding strategy. What we're doing now, as I mentioned, is really making sure that we have a seat at the table of the Board of Trustees at PSPRS to make sure that your voice is heard in the decisions that they are passing that can impact your bottom line. The final strategic initiative that I wanted to talk about is just related to the COVID response, and you all have been running the regional public health response. Our role has been to serve as a liaison where needed with the federal government, governor's office, and state agencies. We've spent a lot of our time on the work related to federal resources and, of course, now into the implementation of those federal resources. And as you know, Mr. Klein, the conversation on Friday was about kind of the next round, and we want to make sure that we're working together to get the best result through all of these things as we go forward. So moving away from some of the strategic initiatives, I'll talk about legislation. It's really important to note that counties as administrative arms of the state have a lot of touch points in state law. So about 280 bills that change statutes in your operating environment were passed this year. They become effective on September 29th. We have distributed a document that breaks down all of the county relevant bills by policy area. That's gone out. It's available to your professional staff to start looking at how to implement all of these items. And I just want to share that to the extent there are questions, concerns, comments, or a need for background on any of those new laws, please tap us. We're happy to be available. A big area that we focus on is the budget, and so I do want to break that down briefly for you. What you see on the left is how the state allocated some key appropriations in its budget. It won't surprise you that they focused on retention issues in DPS and the Department of Corrections, that they put money into higher education in K-12. They also put about $2 billion towards debt reduction. And that was broken down into 2 categories, some dealing with recession-era debt, where they bonded against the lottery or leased some of their state buildings. but about $1 billion of that was to address the unfunded liability in its pension accounts, the public safety pension accounts and the court pension accounts. So very similar to what the counties are doing to try to control the cost of that by putting money into those accounts now. What you see on the right was the tax package, and that's relevant because when they change the tax base, it can impact local governments. The cities cared a lot about the income tax cut because that would impact their revenue sharing and directly impact their bottom line. We don't receive, as counties, revenue sharing for income taxes, but we do care about the overall status of state government and its ability to fund its operations. What directly impacts counties is the change on the property tax side. So what this did was it changes the assessment ratio for commercial properties from 18% down to 16%. Homeowners are at 10%, so they have a lower assessment ratio. By doing that, the state is changing the overall mix of tax collections. And so it does put upward pressure on local government property tax rates, and it does shift some of the burden to homeowners. The way the state's trying to address that is through something called the Homeowners Rebate, which is a subsidy that homeowners receive for their school property taxes. So it's welcome that they did that, but I think as folks that are focused on the property tax, you will see some impacts from this policy as it's phased in over time. And so we'll continue to monitor that as we go forward. A few other budget bills, some of the things we went in paying a lot of attention to. We were grateful to see that the state got rid of county payments to the Department of Revenue. That'll save all the counties about $4 million, about $33,000 annually for Gila County. And then they put a lot of resources in transportation and broadband, and I'll get to those in just a minute. Another long list of items that they put in the budget that are county relevant. We were pleased to see a maintenance of the appropriations for retirement plans from the state that we receive, as well as the in lieu lottery appropriation. These items are very important to keep in the state budget. They put a lot of resources into water supply and development that we'll continue to talk about at CSA as we go forward. And of course, they continued to capitalize the Law Enforcement Boating Safety Fund. Another long list that I won't belabor a whole lot of these items, except that they are putting dollars into a rural county interoperability system, which will benefit Gila County and your neighbors. They did make a policy change on probation that I want to speak about. As you know, probation, the state runs the court system. Judiciary is a separate branch of government. Probation officers fall under that. We do have a cost share arrangement as local counties. The state has historically paid its share of pay raises for probation officers. The county may give a COLA increase, or the judiciary may give a step pay increase to a probation officer, but the state would help backfill some of that. They put policy in this budget removing that, saying that the state's going to absolve itself of its responsibility there and have the counties pay for it. That came out late in the budget, so it is a problem for counties, and it's something that we're going to have to work on going into the next legislative session, so I wanted to flag it for you. I talked about transportation. This is a long list of transportation projects that have been allocated, $161 million in earmarked projects, including some for Gila County, and then $90 million for pavement preservation that ADOT will allocate based on its priorities. And so Gila County was reflected in this. From an association standpoint, we get a little concerned that the state's not putting more sustainable resources into transportation, but it is meaningful about the earmarking some of these projects. And I want to extend accolades to your delegation. I think particularly Representative Cook has been instrumental in delivering road projects for this district, and I think that's a very positive thing. So he deserves appreciation for that. Broadband investment. So this county has long been talking about how to improve broadband investment. The state is starting to provide leadership in that area, and I think that's going to open a lot of doors for all of us. They did put resources in the Arizona Commerce Authority for grants and special projects, and as well as some additional infrastructure on I-40. And so we've really hit that kind of critical point where local governments who have long been asking for state leadership are starting to see that state leadership, and then we're seeing the federal government come in with resources as well. So I anticipate that we will all be working collaboratively on broadband efforts going forward. It really seems to hit a fever pitch now as we've suffered through the whole COVID experience. I wanted to briefly touch on the wildfire special session. You all were heavily impacted by fires and floods, and I want you to know that your colleagues across the state have been thinking about all of you. I wanted to extend my appreciation for the work your team did, including your legislative consultant, policy development group, and Todd Bowman, to get Gila County represented in this package, along with Pinal County and Coconino. As you know, the call doesn't come in until Friday afternoon to say, hey, we need your help to get something done for Monday, and you all were quick to get your perspective at the table. And I wanted to highlight as well that having David Tenney, former Navajo County Supervisor, in his post at State Forester is paying off hugely because he knows rural areas, and he's been a great partner. Let me go into the legislative piece, and again, several bills that went into the process that I want to highlight. So a big part of what the association does is just responding to bills, right? There's hundreds that come into the process that touch your operations. We focus on those that touch supervisor authorities. Our partners, the Arizona Association of Counties, focuses on the constitutional officers, and we work together to address them. It won't surprise you that a lot of attention was focused on elections this year. 130 election-related bills were in the process. I really want to extend my appreciation for the partnership with Jen Marson at ACO, because having the recorders at the table on those bills was instrumental to get feedback into the legislature. There's several bills that I listed here on the right related to expanding audits and expanding recounts and identification protocols. Those are likely going to come back next year in some capacity, so we'll have to monitor them. I want you to know that the association does not look at election bills through a partisan lens. Our focus is, how does it operate? What does it mean? And so that's how we always apply perspective to these policy items when we deal with them. This is a long list of items that were in the budget related to elections. The two I'll point out to you, upper left, Election Integrity Fund, where recorders will have the ability to tap this fund for election security and cybersecurity measures. We'll get more detail on what that means. And then on the right, we anticipate a special committee on the election audit that the Senate has performed, and we'll want to stay close to that to see what any policy recommendations might mean going forward. The other big area was the pandemic. You're familiar with that. And probably what's being debated now are the policy items that were put in the state budget related to preemptions of local governments as it relates to masks, vaccinations, things like that. And that continues to play itself out, but I wanted to flag those for you. I put this here largely just to share the diversity of policy areas that our team works on. Robin Hilliard and Michael Madden, I think, do a great job chasing down everything that touches county operations, whether it's in general government, environment, taxation, pensions, you name it, and it keeps us busy. It was a good year in terms of opposing bad bills. This is just a list of bills we had to either amend or try to defeat outright, but I think it was a pretty good result. And when we look at quantifying that, we came up with a little more than 50 bills that really were a problem for our counties, but through our Legislative Policy Committee, we were able to come up with either strategies to amend them or defeat them, and I think that was a pretty good result. As we go forward, we are already planning for next session. We met with the managers last Friday. We're brainstorming out policy ideas. We need to get organized for it. What I wanted to highlight for you, Mr. Chairman, is that we're going to meet, our board will meet again in September, but we're going to have our strategic planning session in Prescott this year, Yavapai County, and that's the last week of September, first day of October, and I really hope all of you can take the time to be there. As you know, it's when we really come together and get ready for the legislature. And after last year's virtual summit, I think we were all excited to actually do it in person. And so please join us for that. So with that, Mr. Chairman, I'll stop my report there, but I do want to thank you all for your partnership. Thank you for all of the time you've given me, and I'd be happy to stand for any questions.
Thank you, Craig. Tim, are you still with us?
I am, and Craig, thank you for the presentation. Seems like through the COVID and things, haven't seen you in a while. Good to hear from you. Thanks for the presentation, and we'll see you soon.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And Steve, Supervisor Christensen, you got any questions or comments?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Craig, and we look forward to seeing you in Prescott.
Yes, sir. Thank you for that.
Craig, I want to thank you so much from all of us, and you have an awesome team. You know, it's really assuring. You know, I've been in here for 5 years basically now, and something comes up that I just have no idea, and, you know, struggling, I can call one of you guys up and say, what's the deal? And you have a good team, really good people to work with. I've really enjoyed every one of them, so I appreciate that. And Mr. James, do you have anything you want to comment on this?
I would agree with those comments, Supervisor Klein, that Craig and his staff, they are limited number of staff, but the vast things that they address and things that they pull into and decipher and make comprehensive for us are tremendous and to me overwhelming, and they do a really great job. So I appreciate all that CASA does. The data dashboards that we have are absolutely tremendous in being able to readily have information available to make the decisions. As Craig noted, we have to have information to make good decisions, and that is provided in large part by CSA. So thank you, Craig.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you so much, Craig, and thank your team for us as well.
I will, and it's really our pleasure to serve you, so thank you.
Appreciate it. Okay, moving on to 2C, public recognition of 5 employees through the county spotlight on employee programs as follows: Alex Cunningham, Reyes Berharas, David Dumler, Larry Dooley, and Justin McClelland. Eric, you're it.
Yeah,
Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the board. Thank you. As mentioned, we did have 5 employees nominated. It was a group nomination, so I'd like to read the nomination and then invite them to come up. So the nomination form read, I truly want to extend a huge thank you to you and your team. You all went above and beyond to take care of our aging AC unit. Alex came by the administration building during the holiday to figure out the issue. And for the following 3 weeks, Alex and Dave continually checked and returning to try another fix for the AC. Then the crew came together to take out the old AC unit and install the new unit. They were incredible, working in 100-degree plus weather, and they're all eager to help with not one complaint. Thank you again for your help, and this was submitted by Jody Rogers. Firstly, we have Alex, who has been with the county for almost 11 years, but he wasn't able to make it today. We also have Reyes Barajas, who's been with the county for 7.5 years. Reyes, did you want to come up?
Reyes, thank you.
Thank you.
David Dumler was not also able to come today, but he's been with us for 3 years. Larry Dooley has been with the county for 11 years. Larry?
No speech, Larry?
No, that's
Thank you. Thank you for everything you do.
And Justin McClellan wasn't able to come, but he's also been with the county almost 4 years. And that does conclude our nomination for this month's Spotlight employees.
Good. Thank you, Erica.
Thank you.
And thank you all for doing that. And Supervisor Humphrey, you want to say anything?
I just want to thank you all very much for the jobs that you do as Tom used to say, to make us look good. And we appreciate you very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation, Erica. I've always felt that the county has fantastic employees, and this is proving to be so through these merit awards and things like that. So thank everyone.
Thank you, Steve. Erica, thanks again, and thank you all for what you do. Appreciate it. Okay, number 3, regular agenda items. 3A, information, discussion, action to approve the intergovernmental agreement IGA between Apache County, Gila County, and Navajo County, Northeastern Arizona Local Workforce Development Area to replace a previous IGA that was effective July 1st, 2015, to incorporate new requirements as outlined by the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. Stephanie Ray. Good morning, Stephanie.
Good morning. Good morning, Chairman and members of the board. I appreciate the opportunity to come and give you an update on what we're doing as a workforce board, and then also talk about the need for this revision to the intergovernmental agreement. Just as a reiteration, want to talk a little bit about the local board roles. This changed with the law change in 2015, and we're still getting used to the difference between Workforce Investment Act and the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act. The focus before for the Workforce Board was on the job seeker and those programs to help those underemployed and unemployed individuals find career pathways and get into self-sufficiency. Where now the role of the local board has been expanded to be the strategist, the convener, the manager, the optimizer, using data that we find through convening and strategizing to drive the workforce system as a whole. And so what it did was it really shifted to where the main customer of the workforce system and the work that we're doing is the employer, where our greatest commodity is the job seeker. And the local board vision is to serve as the strategic leader and convener of the local workforce development system stakeholders, partner with employers and with the workforce development system, support regional economies and development of sector strategies and career pathways, and support high-quality, customer-centered service and delivery. So going into the structure of the workforce area and this year's budget, wanted to also bring to your attention. So every 2 years, the Workforce Board has to be recertified by the state of Arizona, and as part of that recertification, we went through all of the legal documents, and there were old references to WIA because this consortia agreement was developed at the time that Gila County joined Apache and Navajo counties and formed the Northeastern Arizona Workforce Area. So we were right in the middle of transitioning from the old law to the new, and so there are several references in the current document that talk about either or, and the state requested that those be removed, that we update references to the state Workforce Arizona Council policy that affect the consortia agreement, and then also we needed to clarify whether elections of supervisors have an impact on the agreement. To clarify, the verbiage that we did put in the agreement is that the elections do not have an impact. Just from a logistics and administrative level, that would require, if we had the elections have an impact on the document, then that would be administratively necessary to correct or amend this document after every election cycle. Did also want to point out that we did have a joint meeting in May with we invited along with the Workforce Board, we invited the supervisors as well as the staff, the county managers from all 3 counties. And during that meeting, we went over this IGA, and a request was made to clarify that the approval entity for the budget of the Workforce Board is the Workforce Board, and then it is submitted to the chief elected official, which according to the consortium agreement is Navajo County, for final approval. That ensures the input from all counties via their representatives on the Workforce Board. As a reminder, the structure of the Workforce Board is such that 51% of the members have to be business representatives, and those representatives have to be split equitably between the 3 counties. So we have 10 business seats, 3 of which are represented by each county, and 1 which is intended to be a rotating seat. We've not ever had full membership on the board, so that 10th seat has not ever been filled. I will just put in a little plug here that in addition to that rotating seat that could be filled by a representative from Gila County. We do have another seat that is potentially could be vacated. We have a longtime board member, Jerry Byrne, who's indicated an interest in stepping back from the board, but she's agreed to stay on until we could fill that. And so I would love to have some nominations from the supervisors or some input as to who we should reach out to that might be a good member or two to represent Gila County's interests from that standpoint of those employer members. For the program year 21, fiscal year 22 budget, which the program year and the fiscal year coincide and overlap greatly, but the program year is always labeled the year that the fiscal time frame starts, and the fiscal year is always labeled the year it ends. And so we, as is typical, that has to be very difficult and hard to remember how to do things when you're dealing with a bunch of layers between the local, state, and federal level. And so you can see here we have two types of funds that come in. 10%, a maximum of 10% of the funding that comes to a local workforce area can be used for administrative tasks. The administrative tasks are very specific regarding the actual handling of the finances. There's a policy that states very clearly what we can spend those administrative dollars on. And so that is split out separately from the program revenue. So you can see that the total expenses for administrative expenses and the total revenue is right around $230,000. On the program side, on both sides, let me just clarify. We get allocations on an annual basis from the state. We have 2 years to expend each annual allocation. That oftentimes results in a carryover amount from the prior year. As a matter of historical just reference, when I came into this role, we were always working strictly off of carryover dollars. And so we've been striving to get to a point where we are utilizing those funds that are carried over in order to start earlier in the year on the new allocation, thereby avoiding a reversion of funds to the state. The state has a third year in which they can expend any funds. We don't. So we have in prior years, we've had to revert some youth monies in particular, so we're working to get out ahead of that. So we have programmed a budget that would expend both the carryover and the current allocation. Of these line items, we do have 2 subcontracted vendors, which I will talk about a little bit more in a minute, but because of the shift in the law, the adult dislocated worker and youth programs that used to be under the direct purview of the Workforce Board are now provided by a subcontractor. We have to actually subcontract those out. So that last line item above the reserves, the operation budget total, is the amount that we are allocating to, that the board has allocated to that subcontractor to perform that work. The other subcontractor is that third line down under program expenses, the one-stop operator. That is a new role that is required. It was part of the new legislation. That is also a subcontracted provider. Because the purview of the Workforce Board expanded so much, there are 11 required programs that all are funded from a variety of funding streams. Not all but those 3 are not under any sort of direct purview of the board. And so the one-stop operator is intended to ensure that all parties play nice in the sandbox, if you will. There's a memorandum of understanding with all of those parties, and the one-stop operator then is tasked with the adherence to that MOU. The strategic initiatives this year that we are working on across the region are the Workforce Quality Initiative, the RAFT Technology Platform, that's an acronym for Resource Access Facilitation Technology, and Intake Specialists, and I'll talk a little bit about those. One of the roles of the Workforce Board is to identify labor market information, and I say identify because we are provided with labor market information that comes from the state. It is very broad. It encompasses historical as well as projections for each county as a whole. One of the unique things about our workforce area is that the money that we are allocated to serve the area is based on non-tribal lands. The tribal entities receive a separate allocation. And so to try and split out the labor market information that applies to those areas that are outside of our area, and also to understand a little bit more about real-time information has been difficult. And so we came up with a strategy to better identify local market information within 5 subregions, if you will. And so we've identified 5 hubs. And so in Gila County, we have basically a southern Gila County hub and a northern Gila County hub. And what we did is we went into each of the communities and we pulled together community stakeholders and employers in each of these regions. We had a conversation around what it is that each community needs from the standpoint of what the workforce board is tasked with assisting with. And so we held summits. We, from there, developed community metrics. And then we are now working on community strategies and dashboards around what it is that the employers and the stakeholders in the communities need. The solutions and the metrics that we're working on are, and ironically, although we tried to put this into 5 subregions, the commonalities among them were very high. And so we were able to come up with 5 metrics that would actually meet the needs of all the communities, but the strategies in each community might look a little different. So there was a common sentiment that we could increase career literacy for those youth that are both in high school and the out of school youth that have become disconnected from both schooling and the workplace, to help them understand more the careers that are available in their region, in their hometown. I think it's common to rural areas that we feel like young adults and youth coming out of school are our greatest export. And so in an attempt to help them to see that they can provide a living for their family right here where they live is important. And so we're working on a tool to increase career literacy. Customer service training was also identified at the top of the list for employers throughout the region, as well as the stakeholders who are customers in those businesses. And so we're working with some partners on some customer service training opportunities. Increased trainings on the eligible training provider list, that before any of the subcontracted providers can send somebody through a training program, it has to be vetted and it has to be on this eligible training provider list. And there was some indication in a couple of our communities that we needed to expand what was available on that list to be able to better serve the job seeker and meet the needs of the employers. Basic entrepreneurial training for business owners, particularly those small business owners that have recently started a business or are hoping to expand their business. That took a complete pivot last year, of course, and so I think there's a whole new set of skills that have been identified that might help employers today that we couldn't have even identified or had any idea what that looked like a year and a half ago. And then also an employer development program. So right now, as you are, I'm sure, all aware, the biggest issue facing employers today is the lack of workforce, the lack of interest in people coming to work, people going back into the workforce for a variety of reasons. And so one of the things that we've discussed is the need to maybe educate employers on, because there are now more openings than job seekers, it's becoming increasingly important for employers to understand how to create a culture that entices job seekers to apply and then stay at their business. And so creating an employer development program that focuses on those things, that commitment to developing the employees, going back to that basic entrepreneurship knowledge, and then also having awareness of the workforce resources that are available through the Arizona Outwork system. So on the other side of the aisle are our job seekers. And as I mentioned, there are 11 required partners just through the Arizona Outwork umbrella under the Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, only 2 of which fall under one technology portal. And so one of the requirements of the law is that local areas should look at how to create an integrated technology system. So we have job seekers coming in through different doors, not only of the Arizona at Work system, but also with our community-based organizations who provide human and social services. But we're not talking about those clients between organizations in a coordinated manner. And so we have been working for a couple of years to deploy this technology platform that would allow for that, a common intake process that would match individual needs to the most appropriate program someone needs right now, referrals between the organizations, communication about the common clients, and then on the back side, that data collection, tracking, and reporting to see how we're doing, identify gaps in the system, and also in an attempt to help bring more dollars into the region. I think that we can tell a good story about the need, but most of the data that we have is anecdotal. We don't have, again, with systems operating independently of one another and organizations not communicating, we don't have the data to tell the whole story. I like to say I'm a grant writer by hobby. And so for me, data is really important. I'm kind of a data nerd too. And so we've got to be able to tell the story in quantitative measures. That also then gives us community access points beyond the job centers, meaning that if someone walks into an organization's office that provides housing assistance, they can then be connected directly into Arizona at Work through that intake process. And so if they're identified as having a need for job placement or career exploration, they can come into Arizona at Work. As I mentioned previously, we've reverted some youth funds over the last couple of years to the state, and so that tells me that we're not finding and or engaging those youth, especially that out-of-school youth demographic. Those 16 to 24-year-olds are disconnected from the workplace. They're disconnected from schooling. They're not necessarily interested in becoming connected. And so helping guide them through doors in a more coordinated manner, I hope, will help us to identify and serve that demographic more fully. We're also working now on a client-facing app or website for self-registration. And so those people who are hesitant to come into any office at all will soon have the ability to access us through an app, a website, where they can do that intake process. They can choose which services they want to be referred to and connect into the system that way. We do have the service provider portal is up. It's in beta test now. We are working on, over the next 3 to 6 months, we will be onboarding a variety of partners, both, as I mentioned, through the Arizona at Work system, those internal partners, but also our community-based organizations. And the developer has started the work on the client-facing app. Kind of in coordination with the RAFT platform, one of the things that will be required by using the technology portal is dual data entry, because at least initially, this portal won't talk to any of the other portals. So in an effort to not place a burden on staff who are already overworked right now, we have developed an intake specialist role where this person will be tasked with greeting visitors to job centers, performing that comprehensive intake, and then sending referrals into the system. And so we've been working to hire one in the Globe Comprehensive Center. The board was going to hire these specialists and now has made the decision to actually subcontract them through our one-stop operator. And so that will lead me into the two subcontractors that I talked about. The one-stop operator who is tasked with coordinating all of these partners, and they will also directly supervise the intake specialist, is Chicanos por la Casa, CPLC, out of the Valley. They've been providing these services for a while in the workforce system. And so they just came on in April, and we're hoping to see some real increase in that cohesiveness throughout the system. The adult dislocated worker and youth service provider, I have a breakdown here by region of the current number of participants that are enrolled in those three programs, as well as the staffing. The 2 full-time employees in Gila County is the anticipated staffing within the next few months. They have built into their budget this year a youth specialist to work strictly in Gila County. So right now they have one workforce specialist, and they'll be adding one specific for that out-of-school youth demographic. The in-school youth as well, but the focus is on the out-of-school youth. And so that's the breakdown. And what I'm working to do is find a mechanism, again, separate data reporting systems, but we're working on a mechanism whereby we can provide more regular reports to each of our 3 county boards outlining the services of the entire system. This is just one of those, 3 of those 11 programs. And so we're working on how we can pull the information to show you exactly how the Arizona Work system is serving your county. A couple of success stories that came out of the adult dislocated worker and youth programs. We've got a Gila County client that completed her associates of nursing, and in the 2 years that it took, but that she had some self-doubt. And one of the things that program provides, besides the actual tuition dollars, is staff that's trained in assisting. They not only, and this is how I came into the system, so I'll just speak from my experience, is that it's not just about, I used to say all the time when I'd enroll somebody, it's not just about, okay, here's your check for tuition, call me in 2 years when you're done. There's a continuous support mechanism there that helps people when they hit roadblocks along the way to ensure that they have all of the things that they need, including mental and emotional support to get through the programs that they've signed up for. And then talking about another Gila County nursing student that ended up with 4 job offers. And so she was pretty excited about having choices. She was an EMT prior to that, making a little more than minimum wage. And so the idea that she now has choices in where she wants to work and how much she wants to make, it's another side benefit from a career pathway, is not feeling limited. In the youth program, we work very closely with the Globe Miami Electrical Joint Apprenticeship and Training Program, which is run out of the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Union here in Globe. And last year, 4 Arizona at Work youth clients were accepted. And it is a 4-year journeyman program. And so all 4 youth successfully completed their first year of training, moving on to the next. They, as I'm sure you're aware with apprenticeships, the beauty there is that they are paid above minimum wage starting from year 1. And at the end of 4 years, a journeyman electrician makes well above the median wage in the county. So that is my report. And I'm happy to take any questions, particularly about the IGA, if we need to talk about that.
Thank you, Stephanie. Supervisor Humphrey, you still with us?
I am still with you, Stephanie. Thank you for the presentation. I wish you well with your program, because it seems like every business that we go by's got help wanted in the window. Yeah. And so I hope everything works out to where we can start getting some people back in the workforce. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Supervisor.
Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you, Supervisor Klein. Thank you, Stephanie, for the presentation. I don't have a lot of questions, but just to clarify from my own knowledge, your budget you have here at like 1.8 million, et cetera. And so can I ask, how is this funded? Where does the money come from?
Absolutely.
Briefly.
Absolutely. So it's in the Department of Labor's federal budget each year, and then it flows down through the Arizona Department of Economic Security. From there are 12 workforce areas, some of which are standalone counties or the city of Phoenix. There are 4 consortia in the state. Ours is one of those. And so then the money is allocated from the Department of Economic Security to those workforce areas. The basis of the formula allocation is population, and then they look at different algorithms, they being the state, each year to determine which algorithm makes the most sense based on the need. There is the algorithms consider poverty and unemployment as the 2 other measures, and so the different algorithms weight each of those in the area a little differently. Like one algorithm might be, it'll be weighted 75% toward the unemployment rate and 25% toward poverty. And so if the focus is on helping the unemployed, the state council may make the decision to look at the algorithm that focuses most on the areas with the highest unemployment.
Okay, thank you. So there's no cost to the county, and today we're voting on just a revised or a new IGA, right?
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So Stephanie, thank you. This program, this workforce program is something I've been part of for what, a little over a year? Maybe a
think so.
year and
Year and a
6
half.
months? Yeah. There's a lot to it, supervisors. There's a whole lot to it. And I'm continuously learning. I know we have more to do. And it's hard in these days and times to find the people that really want to work. It seems like they're not there, but there's got to be some. So we keep digging at it. We keep working on the programs and everything like that. I think it's a huge benefit to a county, myself. The county needs to be involved and be a big part of it. And so I really want to thank you and everybody that's on that board for everything everybody does. So, and with that, Jeff, I have a question for you. So, yeah, I'm going to make you think. It isn't going to be long, though. So I am the chair on this board. Do I need to recuse myself for voting on an IGA? Well, maybe it'll take a little longer.
I'm just running it through. The conflict of interest statute makes it a conflict if you would benefit some pecuniary benefit. You will receive some increase or decrease to your pay, depending on your vote, or some property you would gain or lose, depending on your vote. If your vote has no effect on your personal pecuniary property or interest, then there would not be a conflict under the conflict of interest statute.
I do not believe it does. I don't see any changes there at all, to be honest with you. So are we good, James? Okay. Thank you, Stephanie. It's been really good. So I'll make the motion to approve the IGA between Apache County, Gila County, and Navajo County, Northeastern Arizona Local Workforce Development Area, which replaces a previous IGA that was effective July 1st, 2015.
Supervisor Christensen will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Did we lose you, Tim? We may have lost him.
No, but we had the mute button that I was playing with. Aye.
Okay, thank you, Tim. Motion passes. Thanks, you guys. And thank you again, Stephanie. Moving on to B, information, discussion, action to approve an independent contractor agreement. Contract number 07012021-22 between the Arizona Community Action Association, DBA Wildfire, and the Gila County Community Services Department Community Action Program, whereby Wildfire will administer funding in the amount of $118,590, which will be used to provide weatherization services, utility repair and replacement, utility deposits, and bill assistance to eligible citizens residing in Gila County for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022. Melissa, good morning, Melissa.
Good morning, Supervisor Klein and members of the board. This is a contract that we have had every year for quite a few years between Arizona Community Action Association and Community Services. We use this, the bulk of it is used for emergency repairs and leverage with our weatherization dollars. If we have any questions.
Thank you, Melissa. Supervisor Humphrey, do you have any questions for Melissa? Supervisor Christensen, how about you?
Thank you. Thank you, Melissa. How are the contracts awarded? Does it go to preferred contractors or does it go out to bid? Can you explain how that happens?
Well, for the emergency repair, it depends on the amount. We follow the procurement of the county. We have a list of contractors licensed and that have all their certifications. This year we are getting ready to do a major procurement and trying to encompass everyone and put it out there. but depending on the amount, either if it's an emergency repair or weatherization, that's what we follow, the procurement of the county.
Okay. Thank you, Melissa. That's all I have.
Melissa, are we still looking about same amount of money we've had year in, year out? Or are we
Yes.
down a little bit?
Well, about 100,000. We gained a lot of money over the last couple of years in our ERD or for those things, your utility repair and replacement. But we have dropped significantly in our bill assistance program. But in compensation or in making it even, we have gained in other utilities. So the same and more, actually, people are getting helped under the bill assistance part.
Okay.
And more people are getting helped in the utility repair and the housing side.
So we've gained a little bit with
Yeah.
different funds. Okay, thank you, Melissa. Supervisor Humphrey, are you back with us? Nope. Okay. So moving on, I'll make the motion to approve the independent contractor agreement, contract number 07012-021-22 with Arizona Community Action Association, DBA Wildfire, as presented.
And Supervisor Christensen will second that.
Have a motion and,
Supervisor Klein, I'm back.
okay. So having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
Aye.
Supervisor Humphrey says aye.
And aye. Motion carries. Thank you, Melissa. Oh, you're with us again. Thanks. Moving on to C, information discussion action to approve amendment number 3 to an intergovernmental agreement contract number DI20-002263 between the Arizona Department of Economic Security and the Gila County Community Services Department to increase the value of the itemized service budget to $566,680 for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022 for the continued provision of Community Action Program services. Melissa.
Good morning. Thank you again. This contract is our base contract for Community Action Program. As it says, we have some little bit of carryover and a lot of about $100,000 worth of utility assistance and extra that we're going to be that we're working with now through this year, through this current fiscal year.
Okay.
Do you have any questions?
Supervisor Humphrey, do you have any questions on this?
I have no questions.
Thank you. Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you. I do not. Thank you, Melissa.
And thanks again, Melissa. And so with that, I'll make the motion to approve amendment number 3 to an intergovernmental agreement, contract number DI20-002263 with the Arizona Department of Economic Security as presented.
Supervisor Christensen will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Motion carries. Thank you, Melissa.
Thank you.
Moving on to D, information discussion action to approve the use of Arizona State Contract Number ADSP018-00007981 with A to Z equipment for the purchase of a Brush Bandit vegetation chipper in the amount of $77,513.71 for flood mitigation reimbursable through the Department of Forestry and Fire Management. Steve. Good morning, Steve.
Thank you. Good morning, Mr. Chairman, board members. Earlier, the presentation from Craig Sullivan talked about the state turning loose a substantial amount of money to mitigate fires and post-fire flooding in different counties. That's what this is. The state has agreed to fund a chipper in the amount listed for all the debris that's coming in so we can divert it out of the landfill and chip it. Part of the process is we follow our procurement policies and guidelines in place. Because this is over $50,000, it comes to you for approval. If you approve it, we order it, we pay the vendor, and then finance turns around and submits our invoice to the state, and they pay us. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Steve. Supervisor Humphrey, you have any questions?
No questions.
Thanks, Tim. Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you. Thank you, Steve. I have no questions. It looks like a good piece of equipment the county can use.
Thank you, Steve. So my question would be, do we have enough people at the landfill to run it to chip this brush?
Chairman Klein, no, we don't. We've been using contractors. We have 2 chippers that they have been using and chipping for us. They're one of the contractors that the county put under this mitigation project was stationed at the landfill to chip the brush that comes in. Our chippers are just not big enough to handle the quantity and the size we're coming in. So we'll continue to use contractors, and that's reimbursable to DIFM also.
So once we use this chipper, which I think is a really good idea, but the chips, are we going to be sending them out? Are they going to be hauled out, or what are we going to do with the chips?
We'll keep them for. We don't generate a lot of chips in the Globe area at the landfill here. We'll keep them if we move forward with the composting program. If people want to use them for landscaping, things like that, we'll have a substantial pile here. Okay,
Sounds good. Thanks, Steve. I'll make the motion to approve the use of Arizona State Contract Number ADSP01800007981 with A to Z equipment for the purchase of a Brush Bandit vegetation chipper in the amount of $77,513.71.
Christensen will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
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 Motion carries. Thank you, Steve.
Thank you.
On to E, information, discussion, action to ratify the Board of Supervisors' approval for the chairman's signature on Omnia OMNIA Cooperative Contract Number 161534 with Empire Machinery for the purchase of a vacuum excavator in the amount of $61,233.02 for flood mitigation reimbursable through the Department of Forestry and Fire Management. Steve, you're it again.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Same program through the state. Vacuum excavator it's a trailer-mounted piece of equipment that will allow us to go in and with high-pressure water and air open up clog culverts, larger diameter pipes, things like that, and get water flowing again. Happy to answer any questions you have.
Thanks, Steve. Supervisor Humphrey, any questions?
No questions.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you. No questions.
I don't believe I do either. I can see where this is going to be helpful for you guys with all the flooding. So I make the motion to ratify the Board of Supervisors' approval for the chairman's signature on Omnia OMNIA Cooperative Contract Number 161534 with Empire Machinery for the purchase of a vacuum excavator.
Christensen will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor, do so by saying aye.
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 Motion
Supervisor
carries.
Humphrey, aye.
Thanks, Steve. On to F, information, discussion, action to approve an Arizona Department of Corrections inmate work contract, ADC contract number 22-010-27 between the Gila County Board of Supervisors and the State of Arizona Department of Corrections for and on behalf of its Arizona State Prison Complex, IMAN/Globe, for inmates to provide services at the county's animal care facility for the period beginning August 16th, 2021 through August 15th, 2025. Michael O'Driscoll. Good morning, Michael.
Good morning, members of the board. So this is perfect timing as I'm presenting this item to the board, we are in the process of moving out of our old animal shelter and into the new beautiful animal shelter. If you haven't yet visited the site, please go out there. It is a wonderful facility, and thank you for supporting that, and thank you, James, for supporting that. We're super excited about this. And this contract is basically working with the Department of Corrections to bring in some of the prisoners to help socialize the animals, to help upkeep the animal shelter. It's one of those programs that the research has said helps both parties. It helps the prisoners as well as the animals. So we're excited about this. The cost is very little. It's about $6,000 a year at the most, and we already have that set aside in our budget, so this is not going to cost the taxpayers of Gila County any additional funds. So I'll be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Michael. Supervisor Humphrey, any questions, comments?
I have no questions, Michael. Thank you. And it's great to see this come together because, you know, trying to go through a place to build the shelter and finally getting the shelter built, that was a big push for me to have it out at the fairgrounds is for this relationship with the DOCs and the animals. So I think it's a great deal, and I'm glad to see that we're where we're at. And so thanks everybody for helping us sew this together.
Great. Thank you, sir.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Michael. The only question I had was the cost, and you've already answered that. I appreciate that. Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
Thank you, Steve. And my comment is good job. I think this will work out really good. So, and I'm glad you guys are getting in there.
Great.
That's really good. So that I'll make the motion to approve an Arizona Department of Corrections inmate work contract, ADC contract number 22-010-27 with the State of Arizona Department of Corrections for and on behalf of its Arizona State Prison Complex, Iman/Globe, as presented.
Supervisor Christensen will second that motion.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, sir.
I know that you've been working on an open house, Mr. O'Driscoll, and wondered where we're at on that, potential dates and how soon that might be.
Thank you for asking. We have had to set up, I think, 3 dates so far,
Right.
but right now it's set for, I do believe, August 31st. And what we're going to be doing is once we get in there, we're going to send out invitations to the elected officials and to the county administration, and we're going to have an open house at that particular time. So, we're excited about that. We haven't set it in stone just yet, but it's in the next 3 weeks.
Great.
Good.
Thank you.
Oh, you bet.
Okay, moving on to G, information, discussion, action to authorize the advertisement of request for proposals number 072721-subgrantee for project management health disparity efforts to enhance testing for COVID-19 in underserved populations. Michael, you're it again.
Great. Thank you, sir. So this is another one of those grants that the State Health Department gave us no choice to accept, and this is to increase COVID testing throughout the entire Gila County, especially in the underserved areas, which in Gila County we designate as the remote rural areas, to provide mobile tests out there, just to provide access to the test kits, home test kits. We're going to purchase home test kits with this. We don't have the organizational infrastructure to handle this grant because we do have to spend this grant once the RFP gets out, probably in less than 18 months. So we can't really hire full-time staff since we still have many positions still open to be yet hired. So this is one of those things where we really need to RFP this out so we can get a consultant in here to meet those deliverables set forth by ADHS. And I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Michael. Supervisor Humphrey?
I have no questions.
Thank you, Tim. Supervisor Christensen?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Michael, I have no questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. Michael, thanks for getting through all this. So appreciate it. So I'll make the motion to authorize advertisement of request for proposals number 072721.
Christensen will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. H, information, discussion, action to set primary and secondary property tax rates for 2021 for all taxing jurisdictions within Gila County and convey tax rates for all jurisdictions to the county treasurer, and adopt resolution number 21-08-01, providing for the collection of taxes for all jurisdictions by the county treasurer for fiscal year 2022. Mary Springer. Good morning, Mary.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman on the phone and member supervisors. So today is the third Monday in August, and as indicated by our state statute, we're here with the tax rates and the levies and asking the county to adopt the by resolution. And I did want to point out that the county's tax rate of $4.19 has remained the same since 2010. Has not been raised, so that's quite a feat, I think, for any county to maintain that tax rate, given all the ups and downs that we've had over the years. So, but you have all the tax rates of the special districts as well as the primary districts and the school districts. So with that, if you have any questions, I would be here to entertain them. And I think Nick Montague is also in the audience for the school districts.
Good deal. Roy was here earlier too, but Supervisor Humphrey, you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions, comments, just I'm proud of everybody that works to keep us from having to raise taxes. So that's all I have.
Thank you, Tim. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you. I reiterate that comment. But Mary, just for my own understanding, these papers that you provided for this item are very useful. It breaks down all the different communities. Can you explain to me, though, how the Payson School District has a primary rate and a secondary rate? Why do they need that?
Supervisor Christensen, Nick Montague is here, and so I'll let him answer that question.
Good morning, Board. Payson Unified School District has a secondary tax rate because they have a bond, and that is done via the secondary tax rate. So they're paying it back.
Mr. Chairman, I
Yes.
might add that this is a voter approved. The secondary taxes are all voter approved, so go out to a vote. The voters approve going to bond for different purposes specified. And so then there's the secondary tax to pay for the bond.
Thank you, James. Did that answer your question, Mr. Christensen?
Yes, it did. Thank you. I have one more question for Mary. Have you or your department speculated on the impact to the budget on the property tax shift that's occurring in our commercial property from 18 to 16 over the course of 4 years?
Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Christensen, no, we have not. James, do you have any comment?
Sure, Mr. Chairman, Supervisor Christensen. The net effect of what this is doing, and Craig pointed this out earlier, that it is a shift that the state legislature has made that will not decrease what our tax revenue will be, but what in effect it does, it shifts from businesses to homeowners. So the state legislature is choosing to reduce from 18% to 16% the ratio that businesses are charged for that, and the homeowners are at 10%, but it does shift the tax burden to homeowners in Gila County. And that's a questionable policy to take, but that is what is happening here.
Supervisor Christensen, did that help you?
Yeah, that does help me. Yeah, I have no more questions. Thank you.
So I'm sure we're going to have questions on that in the real near future on this shift. Yeah. And it looks like time's going to tell on what it's actually how it's going to impact homeowners. And so, you know, we've been real focused on holding our taxes down and keeping them where we've been for years. I don't see that changing. So I guess going forward, we're going to see what comes out of all this. So, Mr. Christensen, thank you. And with that, Mary, I think I'm good. We've been through all this, so thank you and your team for everything they've done with our budgets, and really appreciate all the department heads and everybody else for holding our costs down. So with that, I'll make the motion to set the primary and secondary property tax rates for 2021 for all taxing districts within Gila County and convey tax rates for all jurisdictions to the county treasurer and adopt resolution number 21-08-01.
Supervisor Christensen will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Thank you again, Mary.
Thank you.
On to I, information, discussion, action to ratify the Board of Supervisors' approval for the chairman's signature on an emergency service agreement and various other amendments to emergency service agreements to increase the total contract amounts from a not-to-exceed amount of $75,000 to a not-to-exceed amount of $150,000 to provide related emergency post-fire mitigation services. Mary?
Thank you, Supervisor. This is asking the board to ratify contracts that we did in an emergency situation due to all the flooding from the Mescal, Telegraph, and bush fires. I'm sure there's going to be more, but we're working with the Department of Fire and Forestry Management and DEMA to make sure that we've got these contracts in place, that we're doing it per our procurement code, but also making sure that we keep them in the loop so we do get reimbursed. So we did have, for the month, one more contract that came in. It was 4 Winds. We gave out that contract for $75,000, but during that time we also had contracts that were bumping up against that $75,000 amount that we had put on there initially. So we had increased their amount by another $75,000, and those contracts are 4 Winds, Dixon Rock and Dixon Rock and Materials, Adoneto Construction, J.W. Flansler, Sullivan Paving, and Barcone Corporation. So those ones are the ones that we did the amendments. So we're asking the board to ratify those.
Thank you, Mary. Supervisor Humphrey, any comments or questions?
No, I have no questions or comments. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mary. So we're increasing this just so that this doesn't have to come to the board as often. If it's over $75,000, is that primarily the reason?
Supervisor Christensen, these are emergency contracts that we needed to get in place immediately. So we went to the board chairman. He signed them, so we're bringing them back to you to ratify the action. But it was done under an emergency basis. And also one other point to note, these are all local Gila County contractors.
Okay. Thank you, Mary.
Mary, thank you. And I'm sure we'll have more going forward. So I'll make the motion to ratify the Board of Supervisors' approval for the chairman's signature on an emergency service agreement and various other amendments to emergency service agreements to increase the total contract amounts from a not-to-exceed amount of $75,000 to a not-to-exceed amount of $150,000 as presented.
And Christensen will second that.
A motion and a second. All in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mary. J, information, discussion, action to approve a one-time variance from following the State of Arizona General Accounting Office maximum allowable in-state lodging rate referenced in Section 10G of Policy Number BOS FIN-112-Travel to allow a lodging rate of $96 where the allowable lodging rate exceeds the $94 rate for non-specific locations in the state of Arizona for the period July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022, fiscal year 2021 and 22. James Minlove. James?
Supervisor Klein and members of the board, COVID has had an interesting response on what hotels and other lodging locations are doing. They have, for the most part, as far as I can see, discontinued allowing the state of Arizona General Accounting Office the rates that they note. If you go to what is referenced as GAO for the state, they list a $94 rate for areas outside of Phoenix, Sedona, Grand Canyon, and other specified locations. They have different rates for different times of year. For all unspecified locations, they list a $94 rate as a maximum allowed for lodging. However, these hotels, these lodging locations have discontinued following the state's lodging maximum rates and have just put the federal government rate. The federal government rate for non-specified locations in Arizona is $96. And rather than have to come back or have pre-approval for every person that travels within the state, then this would allow $96 to be the lodging rate for all travelers within the state of Arizona for the non-specified rates of specific locations. And Mary, she's been doing a little research and looking at this, and I wanted her to comment about what she's seeing as far as the travel goes all together, and the big picture of that, and that, well, if you want to make some comments, Mary.
Yes, supervisors, one of the things that we're seeing is throughout the state and even beyond, a lot of the hotels are not even going with that $96 rate. It's just really kind of hit and miss. Some of them will offer it, some of them don't, and some of them are gouging as far as price for an overnight stay. What we've asked our travelers to do is do their best effort to get the best rate they can. If they can get the government rate, if they can't, then we want them to back it up with documentation. And that's all because the auditors come in at the end of our fiscal year and comb through our records. If we don't have it documented that they did try to make that effort, then we're asking them to pay it back. We really don't want to do that to our employees, but this will help the $96 rate when they go out to make their advanced travel arrangements.
Thanks, you two. Supervisor Humphrey, you have any questions?
No questions.
Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you, Mary. No questions.
So my question is the GAO's office, they'll be okay with this, of us matching the federal rate then, if we adopt this?
Go ahead.
Supervisor Klein, as long as it's board approved and we've documented, and our people are doing a good job at documenting, I don't think they'll have any problem. It's when we don't document is where we run into issues.
So what you said about the motels, the different motels doing different rates is absolutely true. I mean, it's kind of crazy, the difference between just the ones locally here. So thank you. That'll help. And if we can pull it together there, that'll be a big help. James?
Mr. Chairman, I might add a specific example that we have here locally, that the Dream Manor, they were issuing a government rate, but that rate was $96, and that caused some confusion and having to actually pay $2 back with tax and different things like that, when they were just going with the federal rate, which is consistent with other hotels in the state of Arizona. And Mary's, in her research, is finding the same thing, some inconsistencies within the state and nationwide. And so Mary and her team are going to look at those travel policies, travel reimbursements, and see if they need to be tweaked, and we'll bring those back at a later time. For now, we're going to take care of this because this is a specific and immediate issue that we have before us that can alleviate a lot of paperwork and
Sure.
tedious things.
With COVID, we didn't have a lot of travelers. Now that people are traveling again, this has really become an issue.
Well, thank you for doing it, and hopefully it helps.
Yep.
It's worth a try. So I'll make the motion to approve a one-time variance from following the State of Arizona General Accounting Office maximum allowable in-state lodging rate referenced in Section 10G of Policy Number BOS FIN 112-travel to allow the lodging rate of $96 where the allowable lodging rate exceeds the $94 rate for non-specific locations in the state of Arizona for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
Christensen will second.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you.
So at this time, I'll make a motion to recess as Gila County Board of Supervisors and convene as the Gila County Library District Board of Directors to address item 3K. Do I have a second?
Supervisor Humphrey will second that.
Thank you, Tim. Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Motion carries. Jackie?
Thank you. Mr. Chairman and board members, I'm coming to you with our the first of two collections of our annual library service agreements.
Jackie, you want? Let me read the
Go ahead.
agenda first. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
Number K, motion. Okay, we did the motion. Information, discussion, action to approve library service agreements for Isabel Hunt, Pine, Miami, Payson, Tunnel Basin, and Young Public Libraries for the period of July 1st, 2021 to June 30th, 2022. Thank you, Jackie.
There we go. So, as you read, we have, I believe, five library service agreements that I'm asking for approval of today. These are our annual contracts for library services with our community partners. We've been doing this for about 20 years with an adopted contract, and every year we sort of update the contract. It helps identify what libraries or library boards do, what we do, as we share the responsibility of providing library services to the residents. And I'll answer. I have two more of these. We'll be coming back at a later date, and I will answer any questions.
Thank you, Jackie. Supervisor Humphrey, you have any questions or comments?
I have no questions, thank you.
And Supervisor Christensen.
No questions. Thank you, Jackie.
Thank you, Steve. I'm good. Thanks
Thank
a
you.
lot. So I'll make the motion to approve the library service agreements for Isabel Hunt, Pine, Miami, Payson, Tunnel Basin, and Young Public Libraries for the period of July 1st, 2021 through June 30th, 2022.
And Christensen will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Thank you.
And I'd
Motion
also like to make a motion to reconvene as the Board of Supervisors.
Supervisor Christensen will second that.
Having a motion and a second, all in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion carries. Okay. So moving on to the consent agenda action items. Number 4A through 4H. Is there any of these items either one of you want to comment on or remove and discuss?
Supervisor Humphrey, I'm good with the consent agenda items.
Christensen is good with the consent agenda items.
And I as well. I'm good. So I'll make the motion to accept the consent agenda action items 4A through 4H.
Christensen will second that.
So a motion and a second. All in favor do so by saying aye.
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 Supervisor Humphrey, aye.
Motion carries. Call to the public. Do we have any call to the public in Payson?
There's no one here. Thank you.
And do we have on YouTube? Nope, not today. And neither do we have any here. So moving on to 6. At any time during this meeting pursuant to ARS 38-431.02K, members of the Board of Supervisors and County Manager may present a brief summary of current events. No action may be taken on information presented. And Mr. James, we'll start with you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a couple of comments or things I wanted to bring up. One is that at the end of August, we have to submit a report for our this latest ARPA money and our spending that we have done to date and what our plan is. And we have not spent any of those dollars to date. There's been an interim rule that came out from the Department of Treasury, and there's a final one that's due out sometime in September. I was involved with the American Recovery Act plan that we had with President Obama, and they kept changing the rules all the way along. And so rather than jump into things and have to backpedal and redo all of our reports and stuff, I've been kind of holding off on putting this all into action. Hopefully we get that final rule from the Department of Treasury in the next month and that we can formulate plans. However, we do have to submit a report of what our intents are, what our purposes are, how we're going to spend the money, and a fairly detailed plan. The Finance Department, Ms. Springer, tell me that it's not just a report, it's more a novel. So there's a lot of detail that we're working up, that Finance Department's working up here over the next few weeks. What I need from you as the Board of Supervisors, that we are going to on Wednesday meet with our admin team and try to formalize these plans and put this discussion together of how we're going to do this and what we're intending to do. So I need your feedback of what things you want us to look at, what things you want us to see if we can do. There's still restrictions, limitations, and certain things like that. So we have to vet all of those things out in the next few weeks. So would appreciate your feedback on what your intentions and what your thoughts are on a spending plan for the ARPA monies.
Okay, James, I have a question for you. Supervisor Humphrey, do you have any questions for James on that?
I don't at this time, no.
Thanks, Tim. Supervisor Christensen.
Thank you. I have no questions.
I do. So we write this novel, and then do we have latitude somewhere to change? So it's not like our hands are bound.
We do.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't. It probably should be in the same ballpark. Mm-hmm. But if we put down, we're going to spend it on this and this and this, and we decide that what we really want to focus more on this and put more dollars in this area or another area, that I would think that we certainly have that flexibility. So it's a plan. Plans are like budgets. As soon as you adopt them, they change because we are a moving, living organization, and we are meeting the needs of the public, and those constantly change.
So you're needing this by day after tomorrow?
Wednesday, we'd like to have a discussion, and by August 31st, we have to have this report submitted to the Department of Treasury.
Okay, so let's add lots of ballparks together and make one big one.
Yeah.
All right. Thank you, James.
Okay. And secondly, there's been some development with the special legislative session that was had where DEMA and DIFM were given $100 million for the uses that have been explained today. There were some developments last week with DIFM and some uses that we considered not available to us. And so I've asked Michael O'Driscoll to kind of give us an update on where that's heading, where that's tracking of uses of this money from DIFM. So,
thank you, James, and thank you, Michael. Hopefully there's a lot of people listening watching on YouTube for this part of it, so thanks.
Oh, thank you very much, members of the board. So I'm going to read from you a graphic outline the process, just to let you know how this all works. Now, this is a beta test. We're the first county in the state of Arizona to go through this process. So county administration, public works, emergency management, finance, we're all collaborating. So we all sort of created this process that seems to hopefully address some of the issues out there. The issue that we were hearing is this legislative money, what it can and can't be used for. And so we had a meeting with the director of DIFM and DEMA last week, and their interpretation is that this money can be used for some property cleanup. And so then we had to define what that really means, and then the process, we had to get a process in place to make sure that we all cover our behinds audit-wise. And so what we came up with was a process that the director of DIFM approved to get money to some contractors and homeowners to clean up their property damaged by the fires and floods, which includes obviously the fires from last year as well. Out in Tonto Basin, we recently had some flooding, so this also includes that group out there. So what we've come up with is Public Works and Steve Sanders and his team have contacted local contractors and asked them if they're able to do this kind of work and are they willing to do this kind of work. So we have a list of local contractors that a homeowner can call, and then the contractor will meet with the homeowner and go over a scope of cleanup. In other words, is there debris on the property? Is there damaged drywall inside the home? Those kinds of things. This money is not meant for a remodeling or a rebuilding of the home, but it is meant to clean up some of the damaged property on an individual homeowner's property to get that out and into the landfill. And so as we move forward with this, that's the biggest ticket item. I want everybody to be aware of that. At this time, the director of DIFM said this money is legislatively is not going to be used for remodeling or rebuilding a home. And so we have that. So a property homeowner who had some flood damage can call one of the contractors and have them come out. And then what we require is we're going to require the contractor who has been onboarded with finance, with W-9 forms and everything that Mary and her team requires of a contractor so we could pay them. They will take pictures of the damaged property and they will create a scope for the homeowner, and they'll submit those photos and the scope to emergency management, and then we will go out really quickly and verify that this is the property that needs to be cleaned up. These are the pictures. This is what needs to be cleaned up, and sign off on it. The contractor will do the work, and then the contractor will submit the invoice to Mary and her team, and Mary and her team will pay it, and we'll turn around and we will submit that invoice to DIFM, and they will pay Gila County. So that's sort of how it's all going to work. Now the issue is also included is some people have already cleaned up their property from the damage, and so there's a process in place as well for those people who may be eligible for out-of-pocket expenses, not their personal time, but out-of-pocket expenses. Did they get a dumpster on their property? Did they pay landfill fees? All of that may be reimbursed. And so we have, as part of this process, we have a special email set aside for those individuals where they can email emergency management that they've already cleaned their property and then contact us. And what we will ask those homeowners to do is, obviously, we're going to have to provide proof that they paid for these services. So if they have any receipts saved, if they have any of those kind of expenses saved, they'll submit them to us, and our emergency management team will go out to the property to verify that it's been cleaned up, and that, as best as we can tell, that these are the expenses that the homeowner paid out of pocket. And then the same process will occur. We'll send those receipts into Mary and her team, and they will go ahead and pay, and we'll get reimbursed for that. So it's sort of this circle, and how a homeowner can actually use some of this money to clean up their property. So outside the home, yes, outside the home. That's one of the clarifications that the DIFM director said, is it's on the outside of the home. We can't go inside the home, and we can't do any work on the inside of the home. But some of the damaged properties, like carpet and things like that, could be brought to the outside of the home and then put in a dumpster and those kinds of things, and we'll pay for the dumpster and landfill fees. So it's a work in progress. We're ready to go live with this after the board meeting, and we're going to keep our fingers crossed and hopefully be able to get some help out to the homeowners in Gila County.
So I'll ask the questions, and then I'll ask my cohorts if they have anything to add. How's that?
Okay, sounds good.
So
I'm glad I have everybody here to help me, because
So the part about the folks that's already paid a lot of money for previous work done, because we're into, I don't know what day of fire and flood and everything, but we're a long ways down the road. So a lot of people have been affected for quite some time now. So for them to have the opportunity to go back with receipts and things like that will be a huge help for these folks. So I'm glad to see that. What is going to be your plan for actually getting this out to people? And for instance, I had an email just coming in here this morning from an individual in El Capitan saying there's about 20 some odd people out there really needing a lot of different help, and on and on and on. Are we going to try and get around to these areas to pull as big a groups together as we can to go over this with them? Are you going to send somebody out to go door to door? I mean, what is going to be your plan to get that out there?
yes. we have once the board meeting ends, I'm going to meet with the emergency management team. We just literally 5 minutes ago finalized the final draft of this plan. And the good news is we have a list of all the homeowners that we've already performed a damage assessment on. So our emergency management team is going to contact them directly. But beyond that, we have Paul's going to post this on he's going to have a PSA on our website. Emergency management's going to post it on their website, Health and Emergency Management. And then hopefully the PSA will be picked up by the media and local radio and things like that. We also are working with the City of Globe and the Town of Miami managers. They're aware of this program, and they're going to also help us get the word out. So I'm assuming by all of that, we'll be able to capture most everybody who may have some expenses that could possibly be paid for.
Okay, now I'm going to ask you another question.
Sure.
So what about the infrastructures and everything that was affected that is not on private property?
So there is a separate $10 million of this $100 million set aside for the infrastructure, and the Department of Forestry, and I think I sent this link last Friday, sent out a link. In the next week or two are going to be accepting grant applications for that. And I believe Paul's going to put that on our website as well. So that's a direct application to DIFM for that funding for infrastructure.
So, and I read that. Now, I might be a little confused on this. Do those requests still have to come through our emergency management to
No.
DIFMA, or they can just go straight to them?
They could go straight to DIFM.
Okay, so they'll have a portal.
And that link it will link you right there to the application, and you could go ahead and fill that out.
Okay. All right. That's all the questions I have. Supervisor Humphrey, do you have any questions on this?
Well, most of the questions I had have been answered. I just comment, Michael, through pandemic, through flood, through fires, it's like we keep have to reinventing the wheel. And so thank you very much for reaching for this for the private homeowner, a funding source that they didn't have before, and even it's retro. So thank you very much for being able to help these people, because we're far from being out of the woods. Again, thank you very much.
Oh, you're welcome, sir. And it's not just emergency management. I mean, Public Works is doing the heavy lifting here, and the county administration and finance is really trying to keep me out of prison, so that's kind of nice. So
That's good.
Yes.
Supervisor Christensen, you have any comments or questions?
Yeah, thank you, Michael. I have no comments or questions. Thank you.
So, Michael, when you get done putting all this together, you need to copyright everything, and then we'll have it for anybody else in the future.
You betcha. We're going to send this out in probably the next 30 minutes. So I'll make sure we put it in your inbox.
Thank you, Michael, and thank you everybody for all that everyone's doing, all the departments. You too, Steve. And it's been a long job, I know, and we're far from over. So I really appreciate it. Thanks.
You're welcome, sir.
And that's all I had, Mr.
Thank you, James. It was good. Mr. Humphrey, do you have anything for today?
No, I'm going to pass for today. Thank you.
Thank you, Tim. And Steve?
Thank you, Supervisor Klein. Not very much. I met Randy Roberson on K-Rim last week. That always goes well. We hoisted a very nice flag ceremony. I'll let Supervisor Klein expand on that. And then this week is rodeo week in Payson, so always fun. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve. So, yes, me and Supervisor Christensen were both at the flag raising ceremony on Tuesday. It was really good. A lot of people, of course, there was a lot of vets, but most importantly, there was, I don't know, Steve, what was there, 100 kids there? They brought a whole busload of kids, which was really cool, and they're fifth graders. So it was really good. The Tom Apaches hosted it and set up with the other groups up there, and they did a very fine job of it. So I was really glad to be there. Tuesday, August 10th, same day, later in the day, we were down here for the leadership meeting, which was good. Friday, August 13th was WIR and Public Lands meeting. And then this Saturday, coming up, is the Reagan Day Lunch. And apparently there's a lot of interest in this lunch. So if you have tickets for the lunch and something happens, you're not going to go, please give them a call and let them know, because there's a lot of folks waiting to get in. What I seen, there's over 200 people that's wanting in on this lunch. And then this Saturday, I have a town hall meeting in Young at 5 o'clock. And that should be it for my week, I think. Anything else from anyone? Say what? Oh, yes. Craig, in the Arizona American Rescues, the one that Supervisor Devlin's doing, the extra money that's coming across that. How does that look like it's going to happen? Are we going to push on that pretty hard?
Yeah, if you'd like me to give a quick comment on that, I'd be happy to. Supervisor and members, so in the American Rescue Plan, there was a specific allocation that was put in the package. It's already been passed, called the Local Assistance and Tribal Consistency Fund. And within that, there's a specific dollar amount that is allocated to public lands counties, like Gila. Senator Wyden out of Oregon has been leading the charge on it. And one of the things that he did was identify that NACO was to help come up with the methodology. So that methodology that you heard of last week is being submitted to Treasury. And we'll see what the response is on that. But I think the fact that it is influenced by all 15 western states with a heavy public lands presence, as well as with input by Mr. Wyden, I think there's a high probability that that methodology could be accepted. It's important to note that if that methodology is not accepted, this allocation will still occur in some form. And so we'll revisit it and make sure that those dollars are ultimately distributed to Arizona counties.
Thank you, Craig. That for Gila County, it looks like it's going to be north of $5 million. So that's a big help for us that are twice. That's living on 3% of public land. So is there anything else from anyone? I think we're good. So it's 5 to 12. I'll adjourn this meeting. Thank you.